Well, good day everybody. Jose here. This is Survival NS. Welcome back. Well, as you can see, I'm taking a break out here in the wilderness, having a little snack, enjoying the surroundings. However, for many folks who venture out in this type of environment, it's not always this lighthearted. In fact, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people each year who venture out into this type of territory and end up getting lost. And sadly, many of them never make it out alive. However, what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a few basic techniques with a few items that will help you survive your situation out here and help you to get out alive. Stick around. Okay, so take a good look around here. For anyone getting lost in this type of environment can be a daunting and horrifying experience, especially if you have to spend the night out here. And all you need is a few basic skills and a few items which will help you get through the night and help you to get out alive. And the first way to prepare is back home before you even start your adventure out here. And that is notifying your friends and family where you're going, the route you're taking, and when you plan to be back. So in the event that anything should happen out here, your family and friends can contact the emergency services. However, this step is often overlooked because in today's technology age, people rely on their electronic gadgets all too often. And I'm speaking primarily of people's cell phone. Sadly, people's reliance on their cell phone is what gets them into trouble in the first place out here. Out here, cell service is usually non-existent. And for the most part, your cell phone basically just turns out to be a glorified photo album out here. The other problem with cell phones is that they're battery operated, and eventually your battery will get drained and it'll be useless. The other thing that people usually rely on out here is GPS gadgets. However, the same thing happens with GPS gadgets. Satellites can go down. The other thing with batteries is, in cold weather, they don't function so well. In fact, sometimes they don't function at all. So out here, if your cell phone or your GPS gadget isn't functioning, how do you find your way around out here? Let's face it, if cell phones operated the way they're supposed to in any condition, then no one would ever get lost out here. No one would ever require any emergency rescue services to come and bail them out. I've never once used a GPS device. I've always found myself using a compass and a map. And when you put those two together, it's pretty difficult to get lost if you know how to use them. And I'm not ashamed to tell you that yes, I have been lost on more than one occasion out in the backcountry, but I can tell you this, using my map and my compass, I have always found my way out or retraced my steps to a position where I knew where I was at and continued on from there. Okay, well, as you can see, we've had a light dusting of snow overnight and the sun's come out, which is really going to make it easy for me to demonstrate a few things for you today. First of all, let's take the compass and show you how easy it is to use a compass. Now, the best way to use a compass, obviously, is by using it in conjunction with your topographical map. But let's say you only have a compass. How easy is it really to figure out your north, east, west, and south? Well, it's this simple. Check this out. I'm just going to point the camera down so that you can actually see what I'm doing here. First of all, you can see I've got a rotational dial here. And what you want to do is rotate this dial until you see the number 64 right there, number 64. And point that right at the arrow. Okay, just like that. Now what you want to do is you want to move the compass around where you are until that red dial comes into between those two fluorescent yellow strips. Just like this. Okay, so you can see right now that it is in there now, and it's pointing north. So we know north is in this direction, and there's south. So we know south is in this direction. There's your west, there's your east. And yes, it's actually that simple. Another way that you can help yourself in terms of navigation out here is that if you're lucky enough in the morning to see the sun rise, you know the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west, and you can navigate by way of the sun. Now, if the sun is out and it's later in the day, it's still difficult to figure out northeast, west, and south. And for that reason, I always carry an analog solar watch, because you can navigate with an analog watch, not a digital, analog. And it's easy to do simply by pointing the hour hand towards the sun, and the mid distance between the hour hand and 12 o'clock is always south. Now, earlier we've established by the use of the compass that south is in this direction right here. And at the moment, the sun is just going down, and we know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So it's heading in that direction right now. It's heading west. So I'll just get the camera so that you can see. The sun is definitely going west. So we know west is in this direction, east is in this direction. So even without the compass at the moment, we know that south is in this direction and north is directly behind me. Now, to demonstrate by the use of my solar analog watch that it's not some kind of a trick, we're going to use this watch to determine these same directions. So I'm going to bring the camera a little bit closer so you can see. All right, so earlier I stated, in order to find your directions using an analog watch, you simply point the hour hand towards the sun, and the midpoint between the hour hand and 12 o'clock is due south. So let's give that a go. All right, so as you can see, there's the hour hand. I'm going to point the hour hand towards the sun. There's your 12 o'clock. There's your midpoint between the hour hand and 12. And it is pointing in this direction, which we already established. It is south. No trick, folks. You can navigate using an analog watch. When people get lost out here, the biggest obstacle to their survival is pride. People refuse to believe that they are actually lost, and they continue to trudge ahead and become even more lost. So here are a few basic steps you can take when you become lost out in the wilderness. First, stop where you're at. Collect your thoughts, and by all means, do not panic. Not all is lost. Not yet, anyway. Now, we've heard the expression, when you're lost, you should always stay put and let the emergency rescue services come to you rather than you trying to trudge out and becoming even more lost. And if you've prepared well in advance by letting your relatives and your friends know where you're going, if you stay put, they're going to find you. When things become really desperate is when you decide to go off the beaten path, get even more lost, and now rescue services are having to spend a lot more time trying to locate your position. Stay put if you can. Okay, so let's say you've decided that you're going to continue on and try to find your way out. Well, the first thing you should do is mark the location of your starting point. And what I do is I take several strips of paracord and I wrap a few of them around some of the trees in my starting point, so that should I want to come back to my starting point, it can be identified easily by these little strips of paracord. The other thing is, the minute you start heading out, every couple of 100 feet or so, attach one of these to a branch on a tree. Not on this side of the tree, but the other side. Because on your return trip, you're going to be able to see that on the other side. You won't see it here because it'll be hiding behind the tree. Put it on the other side so you can see it when you're coming back. The other thing is, before you set up one of these, on the next waypoint, make sure you can see the one previously you set up, so that on your return trip, you can see them all coming home. And you can collect them as you come back to your starting point. Now, just to give you an example of how effective these strips of paracord can be when you place them along your route in the woods, I've placed just 3 of them along here, and you can see you would have no problem following this route on your way back to your starting point. Another important tip, should you get lost out here, is if you can hear a river, or you know where there's a lake, make your way to the river or the lake. Follow the lake around. Eventually, you'll come to cottages. Rivers, follow the river downstream. The rivers always lead to towns and cities. Now, here's a little tip for you. If you know the axis of travel you took to get to your trailhead parking lot, let's say you were traveling on the east-west axis and you are traveling on foot to this location going north. Well, if you know where south is, that's your way back. Follow south until you hit that road, because that road is on the east-west. You're eventually going to get to the road. Now, if you find yourself lost and it's getting late in the day, there's no point in continuing on. You're going to have to settle down where you are, and you should be able to make it through the night till the morning, unless the weather turns for the worse. You should be fine. Then comes a few priorities that you need to take care of. And the first 2 are interchangeable depending on the environment you're in. The first one is setting up a shelter, or you can set up a fire. Now, depending on the environmental conditions, you may do one or the other. I tend to always set up a fire first. And the reason for that is, if you're in harsh conditions like what we see here, it's kind of cold today and it's snowy. So, if you're cold or wet and cold, the priority is going to have to be a fire. There's no point in setting up a shelter in those conditions, because once you lose the feeling in your fingers or your hands, you lose the dexterity as well. And it's going to be very difficult to set up any kind of a shelter without reheating your hands. So, start with a fire. Get yourself reheated. Get that fire going. You can dry out your wet clothes at the same time. And once you're re-warmed, then you can start about thinking setting up your shelter. Now, let's face it. Rubbing two sticks together out here when you're cold and wet is not going to cut it. We're not Neanderthals anymore. That was good way back in the day. But I'd like to believe that we've evolved far enough that we can use technology to our advantage. Now, another piece of kit that I always carry with me when I head out into the backcountry is a portable folding saw. Very lightweight, and it doesn't take up a lot of space in your backpack. But if you have to build a fire, you need to process wood, and it's very difficult to process wood without a tool. This particular saw I've had for about 6 or 7 years now. It didn't cost very much. I got it on Amazon for about 45 bucks, and it's by Corona. If you do need to start a fire out here to make it through the night, one of the simplest ways you can do so is to carry a couple of cotton balls pre-soaked with Vaseline, just like we see here. Cotton ball pre-soaked with Vaseline. Have your tinder and your kindling ready to go to place on top. Build that fire up. I always bring along this little packet. It's called Instafire. And it's just a bunch of chemical pellets. One of these packets will start about 4 or 5 fires. In any condition, wet, snow, cold, dry, doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a few of these pellets on the snow here so you can see how easily it starts even on snow and ice. And that amount of pellets isn't a whole lot, and it'll burn for about 8 to 10 minutes. Again, giving you enough time to build up your fire. All right, so after you get your fire going, you're going to need to move on to your next priority, which is your shelter. I'm not talking about building a house out here. It's just a rudimentary shelter to help you get through the night. Now, when it comes to shelter, you don't need anything elaborate. Simply by carrying one of these, it's a 4x6 tarp you can buy at a dollar store for like $2. And this will be sufficient to provide a little bit of shelter overnight from the wind and the rain. Now, when it comes to putting up your tarp for your shelter, it doesn't have to be very elaborate. It's just something to keep you out of the wind and rain. Just like this. This will do you for the night. A little fire out front will help keep you warm as well. But before you set up your shelter, there's some considerations that you need to make when looking for the right location. First, look for a flat, dry area. Second, stay away from cliffs so you don't have to worry about falling rocks. Stay away from deadfall out here because that area now is prone to the wind blowing trees over. Third, stay away from hilltops. You're going to be exposed to the elements out there. And next, stay away from the valleys because at night, that's where the cold air collects. Now, for most people, hikers and backpackers will always carry some amount of water with them, usually in hard plastic containers like this Nalgene bottle. They're just about pretty indestructible. However, if you get lost out here and a requirement happens that you need to boil water to sustain yourself out here, you can't really boil water in one of these because you'll destroy it. So for that reason, I always carry a single wall stainless steel container like this. Just remember to also purchase the fish spreader that goes with it so that you can remove it from the fire safely. As I stated earlier, it's nice to have water with you. And like I said, a lot of people carry water with them in Nalgene plastic bottles. But if you get lost out here and you've got to process some water for drinking, you can't boil the water if you're going to go out and collect it in your Nalgene bottle, because you'll destroy the bottle. However, with a single wall stainless steel container, you can boil water for pretty much forever. Just remember to also have your fish spreader so you can remove it from the fire safely. Now, once your water has been boiled, 2 to 3 minutes rolling boil should be sufficient to kill off any bacteria and germs. Then all you do is remove it safely from the fire. Don't burn your hands. Another way in which you can purify water, and a lot of people do, is they carry a portable water filtration device such as a mini Sawyer. These things are a great piece of kit to have out here when you want to purify water. However, in cold conditions, these things are not going to be so good. And the reason for that is because when you use these, there's going to be some water left behind inside the device. And in cold weather, that water freezes in there and ruins the membrane. And this thing then becomes useless. Now, food for some folks is a big priority. However, it shouldn't be, because you can actually go without food for 3 weeks. For most people who venture out into the wilderness, backpacking or hiking, they'll always carry some snacks or power bars or whatever. And these things, they'll do you for about 3 or 4 days without any problems. And for 3 or 4 days, that's plenty. You should be well on your way to being rescued. The next priority I'd like to talk about is clothing. Now, we've already discussed shelter, but one thing you should understand is shelter usually begins with the clothing you've got on your back. If you've got the proper clothing that you're carrying with you into the backcountry and you get lost, you can make do a couple of nights without a shelter and just the clothing on your back. The first consideration is a waterproof jacket with a hood. Okay? Normally when you purchase a waterproof jacket, you usually get the pants to go with it. So that's also a good thing to have. Bring those pants along as well. Not only will it prevent water from entering, but it'll keep the wind out because they're also a windbreaker. Your next line of defense out here in the woods against the cold is going to be your down puffy jacket. And as you can see, this thing is very lightweight and it is very compactable. Now, another piece of kit that I always take with me is a extremely lightweight, very inexpensive windbreaker such as this one here. Comes with a hood as well, which is important to have. But when you wear this light windbreaker underneath your puffy jacket, this light windbreaker acts like a vapor liner barrier. It does not let any body heat escape whatsoever. And check this out. Look how compact that is. Very compact, lightweight, inexpensive. I think when I purchased this, it was about $16 on Amazon. But this thing is a lifesaver. And of course, to go along with the rest of the clothing, you're going to need a pair of decently warm gloves such as these fleece gloves, and you're going to want a warm hat, because out here when night falls it gets pretty chilly, and as everybody knows, body heat, most of it anyway, escapes through your head, and we don't want that out here. We want to retain body heat. Another important signaling device I carry with me is this little piece of kit right here. This is called the Splash Flash by Ultimate Survival Technologies. And what this is a personal locator beacon. It's got an SOS signal. Now this thing has 25 lumens. It can be seen from 360 degrees all around. It houses one AAA battery and it lasts for 11 consecutive hours. You can use it as a little flashlight or your SOS signal. A really good piece of kit to have for signaling is a military grade signal mirror. Look how small and compact this thing is. It weighs nothing and it can easily be put in your backpack, but this thing could save your life. Just to give you an example of the distance that can be covered with a signal mirror. Back in 1894, a world record was set covering a total of 295 kilometers or 183 miles between a weather station on a mountaintop in Utah to another mountain station atop another mountain in Colorado. That's a heck of a distance. Now, you'll notice on the back of the signal mirror are directions on how to properly use this device. They're pretty clear and concise. You can't go wrong. Now, to give you an example on how effective this signal mirror is, I'm going to use the sun, reflecting the light of the sun onto the lens of the camera. Well, I probably just blinded everyone out there. Now you can see how effective a signal mirror can be. If you're in a snowy environment, you're going to want the best contrast between the item you've got and the white snow. And that is blue. Blue from the air is the best color that can be visually seen to identify your location. If you're in a wooded area such as this, then you're going to want something that is bright and fluorescent. And usually that means bright fluorescent orange. And that's the reason why hunters out here wear bright fluorescent orange, so they don't kill each other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this blue shirt on the snow pile behind me so that you can see the difference in contrast between the blue and the white background of the snow. And then you will understand how easy it is for air search rescue to locate your position. Now I'm just going to bring the camera over so that you can see how bright that blue is with the white background of the snow, and how easy it would be for air search rescue to locate your position. Now, the last item I want to cover when it comes to signaling is the universal signal for help, and that is 3 little fires in a triangle in a clearing about 100 feet apart. Anyone searching for you from the air sees that signal will know automatically that you need help. And out here in the wooded area, It's 3 whistle blasts. Now, when emergency rescue services hears those sounds, 3 whistle blasts, they know instinctively that there's somebody out there that requires assistance. Okay, folks, well, that's pretty much all I have for this episode. If you liked this video, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please also hit that subscribe button. All you need is a few basic items to carry with you that are not heavy and bulky, that will easily fit into your backpack. Those items will help keep you safe long enough for rescuers to get to your location and to help you get out of here alive. If you would like to share some of your own experiences of getting lost out here, please leave it down below in the comments. This is Survival NS. See you on the next video. Take care and be safe.